All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A skill acquisition plan outlines how to teach a client to read street signs. The plan includes a description of the target behavior, a fixed ratio schedule, and a plan to collect frequency. However, the plan does not specify how the client will apply the skill in real-world settings. What is missing from this plan? So we're thinking about how we write skill acquisition plans. And while you, as the technician, won't independently write plans, you will assist in plans. And it's good to know what should be included and how to read a plan. So let's think about this particular skill acquisition plan. We're trying to teach a client to read street signs. So far, we've included a description of the target behavior, which is likely a definition, what it looks like, why it might function. We have a fixed ratio schedule, which is, of course, our reinforcement plan, and then a plan to collect frequency. That's our measurement. Based on those three aspects of the plan, what might we be missing? A method for collecting data during training sessions. Well, we have a plan to collect frequency. Collecting frequency is a data collection plan. It's a data collection strategy. So it appears we have a method to collect data. B, a clear strategy for generalizing to other environments. Does anywhere in this question prompt demonstrate or highlight how we're going to teach generalization? No. We've got a description, we've got a reinforcement plan, and we've got a measurement plan. But we don't have a way of specifying or saying how the client is going to apply it in real-world settings. Even the question says the plan does not specify how the client is going to apply this skill. So if we're missing the aspect of how we're going to take what we teach and get the client to use it in a real setting, then we're not really doing our jobs. Generalization might be the most important thing when it comes to skill acquisition. Because if we teach a skill in a clinical setting or a home setting, it doesn't matter if that skill can't be done outside of that learning environment. So if we're not specifying how the client is going to apply the skill in the real world, then we're not outlining a strategy for generalization. C, because we always read all of our answer choices, a detailed description of how the client is reinforced during sessions. Well, we have a fixed ratio schedule, and that's going to tell us how the client's going to receive reinforcement. And then D, an explanation of what the behavior might look like. Well, we have a description of the target behavior. So while we don't get a lot of information, the information that is given to us clearly indicates we're lacking a clear strategy for generalizing to other environments. A child frequently cries at bedtime to gain attention from their parents. The parents implement an extinction procedure by no longer giving attention during crying episodes. In the first few nights, the crying increases in intensity and duration before it begins to decrease. What is the initial increase in behavior called? Very straightforward question. It's essentially a definition or fluency question. We're looking at an initial increase in behavior following what? Following extinction. We know the child is frequently crying at bedtime to gain attention. The parents implement extinction. They no longer give the attention. And so what happens is behavior's here, extinction starts, first few nights, crying goes up and then starts to decrease. What do we call this area where our behavior is increasing in intensity and duration or frequency? At the beginning of extinction, we call that an extinction burst. So if we look at A, the increase in behavior is not called the extinction burst. That is the actual intervention that is leading to the burst. What we're looking at is B, that extinction burst. Following that burst, we expect the behavior to decrease. Spontaneous recovery would be after this behavior is gone, all of a sudden, it spikes back up. That is to be expected. We can plan for spontaneous recovery, and if spontaneous recovery is to occur, we need to just re-implement that extinction procedure as quickly as possible. And then D, negative reinforcement. We're, of course, looking at behavior and not a consequence, so negative reinforcement is not going to be relevant here. That initial increase in behavior is called an extinction burst. A session note written by Ali, a behavior technician, reads, "The client had a bad day and didn't want to engage. Which of the following is the most appropriate revision that Ali should make if she were to rewrite this note?" So we've got to think about Ali's session note, because as a technician, you're going to be writing session notes every single session. And in those session notes, we want to be as objective and descriptive as possible. Ali wrote that the client had a bad day and didn't want to engage. What does that tell us about the data, about the target behaviors, about the skills? Nothing. What does bad day mean in the situation? What does it mean the client didn't want to engage? It doesn't really tell us anything about how the day went. If me, a BCBA, were to read this note, I would have no idea how things actually were. So let's say Ali wants to rewrite the note. How should she revise it to help out her team and her analyst? Additionally, the client had difficulty completing tasks and appeared upset. It's a little better, but it still doesn't give us much. What does difficulty completing tasks mean? And appearing upset is a really bad way to describe a client in behavior analytic terms. What does upset mean? Were they crying? Why did it happen? When did it happen? A is not going to give us a lot more information than what we already had. B, the client completed 3 out of 10 targets and required physical prompts for 70% of trials. B is much better. Now I have data. I have a picture of what went on. We had 10 targets total. They only got 30% of the targets and needed a lot of physical prompting. That tells me something about what was going on just based on the words alone. So B is much better. C, the client refused all tasks and was uninterested in activities. The refusal does help, but again, this word uninterested, what does it mean? What does it look like? B is still much more specific. And then D, the client's behavior showed signs of frustration and non-compliance. Again, words like frustration, non-compliance is not telling us a whole lot about that client. You want the note to be where if the parent read it or even an outside observer read the note, they would get an idea of what happened. And if you read B, the client completed 3 out of 10 targets and required physical prompts for 70% of trials, that is now actually telling you what happened, right? The client clearly didn't want to engage because they needed such a high amount of physical prompting and they were not completing their targets. So B is descriptive, or at least the most descriptive out of our answer choices, and will be the clearest and best revision Ali could make. A technician notices a child stacking blocks and the child struggles to balance them properly. The technician uses the opportunity to teach the child to put bigger blocks on the bottom of the smaller blocks. What type of teaching strategy is being applied? So let's think about this. Our 2 main teaching strategies that we want to know as technicians are discrete trial training and naturalistic teaching. Naturalistic teaching, also known as incidental teaching. With discrete trial teaching, that is a case where we are delivering rapid instruction followed by quick responses and quick consequences. It's very quick, but it's very systematic and very contrived. In this case, this technician just sees a child stacking blocks and struggling, and so they use that opportunity to teach. And that is the key here. When we're just using opportunities to teach instead of systematically planning everything, what type of strategy are we using? A, discrete trial teaching. Discrete trial teaching is not using an opportunity to teach, it's planning to teach. It's a very structured way of teaching. When we are just taking opportunities that are occurring in the environment naturally, then we're using naturalistic teaching. Naturalistic teaching is also called incidental teaching. So the type of strategy being applied is going to be both B and C. Discrete trial teaching is very good for teaching brand new skills, strengthening skills. Naturalistic teaching is good for fading and good for generalization and maintenance. So if this technician is just noticing the child struggling and taking the opportunity to teach, they're using naturally occurring incidents to teach skills. In response to Jim throwing his toys, Jim's mom tells him Santa is making a list. checking it twice, and he's going to find out who's naughty or nice. Jim immediately stops throwing toys and doesn't throw his toys the rest of the week. Jim's mom's response represents blank. Now we're looking at a consequence. How do we know Jim's mom's response was a consequence? Well, it followed Jim's behavior. So if we have Jim's behavior followed by Jim's mom's consequence, we want to know, how did that behavior change? Well, we know the behavior decreased. Why? Jim immediately stopped throwing toys. So following that consequence, Jim's behavior decreases. So if we have a behavior that decreases following a consequence, what was the consequence? Well, it had to be punishment or extinction. But in this case, punishment is better because something is being added or taken away. It can't be reinforcement because reinforcement is always increasing behavior. This behavior decreased, it must be punishment. So then we have to ask ourselves, did mom add something or take something away? Well, in response, Jim's mom tells Jim something. She is adding this consequence, making it a positive punisher. So if you look at A, negative reinforcement, we know the behavior is not reinforced, right? Because the behavior decreased. Same with B, positive reinforcement. It can't be A or B. The behavior went down. So it has to be C or D, positive or negative punishment. Well, we know it was positive because it was added, and it's punishment because the behavior decreased. So Jim's mom's response represents C, positive punishment. Now, these consequence questions, when you're working and first starting out, should be approached this way. We're breaking out each individual section of the consequence. Eventually, when you get very good, you're going to be able to read this question and answer it very quickly. But the key when you're first starting is to understand each aspect of that consequence. Was something added, withheld, taken away, and then the behavior decrease or increase. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. We'll see you soon.